Yeah, so one of the things that tons and tons of people have noticed is this. Well, I guess you refer to it here as like a compliance orientation. There's like this legalistic orientation, and I think that the campus level training needs to have a different orientation, an orientation towards serving students first, serving students according to their needs, which generally pushes towards an inclusion model. So the staffing and the training on the ground, so that when you're in the yard meetings, when you're in meetings where you're talking about what the IEP will look like, when you're in these, when you're in any of these settings, the heart and soul of the work in the room has this orientation built in, rather than an orientation where we're backdooring to the best practice because our first thing was checking things off with the law. So that has to do with like the way we're trained up, so that those in the room are and they, who are also the people monitoring it, are, you know, have the appropriate disposition and orientation.
Thank you, Kevin. Okay, and then we're going to District 8, and we'll start with Noelita this time.
All right, thank you. So these are always tough questions to answer in such a short amount of time. So I think some of what I'm looking forward to the board taking on, and if I have a chance to serve on the board, what I hope to really work with my colleagues as well as educators, the district and communities to do, is really have everything from, you know, setting a clear vision. I think Kevin kind of mentioned this in his response as well, setting a clear vision for a purposefully inclusive education. I mean, because quite frankly, when we look at universal design and some of the other things that really help bring students into the classroom rather than feeling like they're a separate or a guest in the classroom, these things can help all of our students, general education, special education students, all of ours. So I think setting that clear vision, but also backing that up with a budget that demonstrates that commitment to having an inclusive and kind of least restrictive education in our school district, and then having a superintendent scorecard that has specific measures on it that allows the board, the superintendent, and the community to understand what we're expecting, and then to then follow through on that accountability. But beyond that, I think we also have to take, you know, the board members don't get into the weeds, but we can set the vision, and hopefully with that, the district will take a good look at you know, why is the special education department dealing with such deep morale issues? I think some of those issues were identified at the very beginning of this session. So I could say more, but I think it really is about kind of flipping the way that we view public education and recognizing that public ed was designed with an ableist lens, and even those leaders within the district who have children with special education needs are also dealing with some of those challenges of undoing ableism.
Thank you, Nolita. Okay, and Jared, will you go next for us?
Awesome. If you don't mind, can you repeat the question for me, please?
Absolutely. So federal law requires that students that receive special education have individualized education plans, as you know, IEPs. So this is often used a way to avoid addressing the systemic lack of inclusion and keeping kids out of general ed. So how will you ensure that policies are in place that can be equitably monitored? You just wanted me to say that word again. To implement an inclusion model that goes across the district?
You know what? I think that's a great question, Maria. So basically, at this point, like I said at the beginning, it's about having that bold and courageous leadership. You know, we need some people that's gonna push that ledge. You know, we're so close. I know that we have our special education advisory committee, and I know that they have been doing some amazing work. Several of you guys serve on that committee. And so it's about making sure that their voices are uplifted on that committee, because when you really think about it, they're very knowledgeable and basically have students that have experienced these things, and whether that's students like in their classroom, or, you know, students as in biological children. And so basically what I'm saying is that our district needs to take that next leadership component and make sure that we're providing a way for all of our students to learn in an inclusion setting. So, you know, you talked about IDEA, and basically that means that our goal as a district is to make sure that we're providing the best, highest quality education for our students. And we know that our students, they feel, and I can tell you this because I've been in the classroom with our students of special education. So basically they feel a certain type of way when they're being pulled out. You know, it's like, why do I have to be pulled out, and things like that. And also, you know, it's just, we can do better. And it's about holding our superintendent accountable. When we look at the data and it shows that there's, you know, disproportionate, you know, performance or whatever it may be, why is this happening? And I'm going to give you a couple more months. I better see some very big changes, or, you know, we're going to have to increase this. And so that's what it's all about. And I think that come November, we're going to have, I'm going to have several different colleagues on the board that are going to be able to rally with that, basically, and hold our superintendent and our administrators accountable. Thank you.
Thank you, Jared. And now, Leticia, if you'll share.
Yes, hi, thank you. My professional experience is working in the legislative arena, crafting policy and statute, and you see this type of example all the time, where you've got certain language and it meets the spirit of the law, but not the intent of the law. And if our intent is to make sure our special ed students are being served in general population classrooms, then we've got to commit to doing that. Not just me or somebody from District 2 and somebody from District 5, but the entire 9-member body of the board has got to make this a priority and work together collaboratively to move this issue forward. You know, I've talked about a strategic academic plan, and there's several competing needs and interests all over the district. We've got, you know, budget deficit. We've got 129 schools. We've got lots of things that need lots of fixing all over the place, but we can't do all the things all at the same time. We've got to start to prioritize our needs, and that needs to be reflected in the budget. So we can hold a superintendent accountable, but at the same time, whoever's elected to lead the district needs to be able to work together to make sure we are all on the same page and working towards the same goal.
Thank you, Leticia. Okay, now we're going to move over to District 5, and we'll start off with Piper Nelson, please.
Thank you. I learned so much from the inclusion materials that you sent, and from both of your websites too. They're really well done, and they're beautiful. And I think actually that speaks to a really important piece of this, which is the communication piece. You know, someone said, as trustees, we don't have a lot of ability, nor should we, to get into the weeds. And so there are certain things that we can do to ensure that that inclusion is taking place. And one of the places is with metrics for the superintendent. I think the superintendent has the potential to be incredible. But part of that is ensuring that the metrics and the accountability is there, so that she knows exactly where our priorities are and what's important to us. And communicating with families, with special education families is key. There are also great metrics that can be included around inclusion. Whether there's a, you know, in so many schools, the special education students are in some dark room in some dark hallway, right? Just even looking at the physical spaces and looking into how kiddos are being integrated into classrooms, what opportunities there are for all types of learners to learn from each other, what kind of training and skills we're giving to every single teacher on how to work with kids of different and special abilities. All of those things can be metrics, can be things that we measure for the superintendents, as well as the engagement and how parents of those students are being engaged. That can be another metric that we're looking at. Oh, I lost the timekeeper. Sorry.
You're just under, yeah.
Okay. I'll stop there. But I think that the piece that is most important to me in all of this is recognizing that we can learn so much from each other, and that by empowering students and teachers and the community and parents to be advocates, we all benefit.
Thank you, Piper. Jennifer, will you go next?
Absolutely. Thanks. We need greater accountability measures for our superintendents and for our principals. We need every campus to provide a base level of SPED services. We were all at a forum at lunchtime talking about dyslexia intervention services, and I talked about the same thing there, that this is an issue that we see across multiple services, multiple issues in AISD. We need some guardrails around what are the fundamentals that every campus is going to provide. We have to have that accountability at the principal and the superintendent level in order to address those campus by campus differentials. We know that things are working on some campuses, so we need to learn from that, grow that, expand that. I do think that it's unfair to ask every teacher and every principal to be an expert across the board. I think that's asking too much. So where we have principals and teachers who had success in an area, we can take that and bring that to other campuses. We don't have to ask every principal and superintendent to recreate the wheel. We also need to rely on the expertise of our advocacy groups. And to have a general focus on best practices. Our district has not done a great job in keeping up with the pedagogy on special education, on early literacy instruction. Those are key to making sure that our kids are getting what they need. Thanks.
Thanks, Jennifer. And Lynn.
Yeah, thanks. I think we need to start by hearing our community, all the people who've been at school board meetings raising this issue, all the teachers and specialists who've been leaving our district over what their expectations are, the working conditions, the support they are and are not getting. We need to hear that and see this for the crisis that it is. And we need to address it now because every student in our school now needs that now. I think we certainly don't need every person on a campus to be an expert, but we do need every person on a campus and every person at those layers above to have a baseline understanding of special education and what the needs are, what the methods are, and what the best practices are. That should be a condition of becoming a principal, not that you have to be a special education specialist, but that you at least have a solid baseline. And we need to give teachers the support they need as well to understand how inclusion works, so they have the tools, so that when we're asking people to be part of that inclusion model, they're well equipped to do that. I think in the same way that we're talking much more openly and deliberately about race, we need to be talking much more openly and deliberately about disability and about ableism. And that needs to be part of our culture of proficiency and inclusiveness training. And that should be non-negotiable. We need a deeper understanding and a deeper comfort with everybody who our schools serve. That is a non-negotiable. I think we also need to really engage families. Families are good watchdogs when they understand what they should be able to expect. And I think relying on families to be in the dark, that's not fair to families, students, or our schools. And we need to create an army of families who are ready to help us make sure that we're reaching what we say we value.
Thank you, Lynn. Okay, and now we're gonna head over to District 2. John, will you share with us?
Well, first, the questions have been so expansive. My mind is kind of going in all directions right now. But what I do want to say is, one, the district and the state are recovering from the 8% quota that was put on the schools in terms of diagnosing people with SPED. We're still not out of there. this is the habits and practices that are built at the principal level, and they need to be unlearned and undone. And we need a Truth and Reconciliation Commission approach to SPED in terms of like why so many teachers are leaving, why so many, why are there so many consultants? How much money could we be saving if people would just stay in the place? We also need an equity audit. We don't need two separate equity audits. We need one equity audit that foregrounds disability, race, funding, and those issues all at the same time. And then third of all, and most important, and I think this is one of those things like, oh, I didn't know there were more students in Austin ISD every year. What is one of the biggest triggers for teachers when they have SPED students? Is worrying about test scores, is worrying about retaliation and fear. If we want to deal with SPED issues, we want to deal with IEP issues, we need to deal with test scores and the ways that sort of like rewards are distributed at the superintendent level, at the principal level around test scores. So I do think sort of like having that pour down to principals, like, how come you haven't diagnosed at least 15% of your students with disabilities? What's your problem? Are you like amazingly healthy school? Like bringing it down there as one of those things that people need to take very seriously. And in that process, of course, bringing in communities, having shared conversations, listening to people who've subbed in every dang school in Austin to see what their experiences are to be able to share those processes. I'm speaking to Jared in this case, but to a number of other people as well who've seen the places, because otherwise our experiences of schools are our experiences of principals. And the only way you get to learn about different processes is by experiencing different principles and being able to either bless your heart or bless their heart.
Thank you, John. Okay, and then Ophelia, if you will share your response, and I'll let you know when you have 30 seconds left.
Okay, thank you. Well, as you mentioned, that there's federal law that has allocated funds for our students. And I think we give too much power to the principals to decide if they're going to spend that money for what it's allocated or not. And I don't think that it should be on the principal to make that decision. The law is the law. The money is for the students and it should go to the students. So I think we've been very lenient and not penalizing our schools or holding them accountable to ensure that the resources allocated for our students be provided to the students. It's been too long, so many years, and for TA to say they are encouraged to spend the money.
You have 30 seconds.
Okay, it should say they are required, and there be accountability measures through the equity office and through the superintendent scorecard that those funds are spent on the students. Thank you.